Hi there, hope you're doing great today. In today's quick video, we'll cover the top 10 red flags to spot a scam. As usual, our videos are for educational and entertainment purposes only and do not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. So let's begin. There's been a lot of press and a lot of articles in the news lately about as people in the Securities and Exchange Commission indicting people, specifically operators, sponsors for fraudulent charges or launching investigations against sponsors for fraudulent charges and Ponzi schemes. And we've published some of those previously in our social media posts as well as our bi-weekly newsletter. So if you'd like to subscribe, please tap on the link below. But we'll quickly cover the top 10, and for better or worse, I've accumulated those over time by virtue of my professional background, where I've prevented or caught rather 3 fraudulent schemes. And I'll tell you that the signs are not always financial. So what are some things that you can pay attention to if you're looking to avoid scams? Of course, you cannot prevent fraud from happening. There will always be bad and unethical people out there. But there are certain steps you can take to vet the people and the opportunity upfront to at least minimize the risk. Number 1 is doing real business with real people. Real people, in today's day and age, a lot of things are happening over social media or the internet, so you want to make sure you at least have an opportunity to connect with the sponsors in person, or know someone who has met them and connected with them in person. Real business, you want to understand that what you're putting your money towards and make sure it's a real asset, right? In real estate, you're dealing with a tangible property that you can go visit, or perhaps have someone in that local market be your trusted boots on the ground and walk or drive by the property to give you that honest feedback. And you can validate, right, the address listed on the PPM versus the public records. Number 3 is history of operations. How long has that operator been in business? What is their track record? How are they known in the community, and so forth. Number 4, guaranteed returns or super high returns. Now, again, I'm not saying that investment opportunities with high returns are necessarily bad investments, but inherently they carry more risk. And when you start getting lured with promises for making a lot of money quickly, that should at least ring a bell in your mind, or at least it rings one in mind in the past. Number 5 is understanding the underlying business. I was presented with an investment opportunity in oil and gas, and there are a lot of variations of those oil and gas investments, but the particular one I was presented with didn't quite make sense in terms of the underlying business model. And for better or worse, I guess better for me, but worse for the investors who had chosen to proceed with that opportunity that later on turned out to be a scam or a Ponzi scheme. Number 5 is doing background checks on the sponsors. Now, not everyone would do that, but and especially if you've known that person for a long time, you may choose not to proceed with that. That again is your individual choice, but it's something that you can do up front to make sure you're making a prudent investment decisions, and again, not partnering up with someone who has an ethical way of doing business. Now, is that always a guarantee? Probably not, right? If you had done background checks on Bernie Madoff, you probably would not have found anything nefarious. And in fact, he actually passed, I think, 3 or 4 SEC audits without any problems. And his Ponzi scheme crumbled during a downturn in bad economic times, which is usually when the music stops playing. But again, doing background checks and upfront is one way to partially mitigate that risk. Number 7 is lack of transparency. You should be able to ask any and as many questions as you want. Of course, don't bombard the sponsor with thousands of questions, and if that's the case, it's probably best to schedule time versus writing lengthy emails. But the sponsor should be able to share with you the information that you're asking for, and if it's something highly confidential, they'll share that with you. Number 8, we already briefly mentioned, that is Ponzi schemes. Again, don't follow the herd mentality and do your diligence up front. Number 9 is a high pressure or feeling rushed to make a decision. Now, while it is true that most investment opportunities, once they're under contract, once a deal is under contract, an operator typically has about 60 days to close, and in some cases there may be extensions, so that period may be extended to 90 or 120 days. And usually there's a lot of work happening up front before a sponsor can start publicly reaching out to investors, or individually one-on-one reaching out to investors, which further compresses the timeline. But normally that leaves about 30 to 45 days, which should be ample time for you to make a decision and address any follow-up questions that you have. So you shouldn't necessarily feel rushed. And ideally, the sponsor will be reaching out to you during that 30 or so day time frame to ensure they're covering and addressing any and all of your questions and concerns. And number 10 is third-party validations. Knowing who the CPA is that the sponsor is working with, who is the attorney, the insurance broker. Of course, these are not necessarily guarantees that there is no fraud going on. Ask me how I know. But again, it's another lever, another tool you can use in your toolbox to further vet the sponsor and the opportunity to minimize risk. So we recognize today's video was a little bit longer, but wanted to share these 10 tactical tips with you so you can be, again, a more empowered and better educated investor. We hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you at the next one.